Today I wanted to do a video on how to get these Rhino ramps to work for a modified Kia K5. Here you can see the back. It's already touching my kit and it hits at the very back here, right there. So that's no bueno. And I'll do another one of the front. Here's the front. Have the same problem. We're hitting right there. So that will not go up the ramp. So let's solve the problem. So what you're gonna need is this is skateboard deck tape. You get enough of it. So here I took a 2x10, had Home Depot cut it in half. And here's the difference. First, I did the 2x8 by 12. And then these were 10 footers cut in half. This would have given me a little bit longer range. We'll see how that affects everything. But the main thing is look at the width. If you look at the width of our tires, with the, I think I'm running 8.5 inch width on it. So that's pushing me pretty much to the edge. So a finished 2x8 is gonna give you a 7-inch width, which you would just be barely holding on to the wood. If you do the 2x10, you're gonna get 9-inch. So that'll give you at least a 1/2 inch to play with on either side, so you're not driving your vehicle off the ramp. So this is my first attempt, just using some scrap wood. I did this about a year ago. It worked a little bit, but not great. You wanna make sure you have an anchor here, because this basically fits in right here. So you want that little wing nut and the bolt going in here, holding this, so as you're coming up the ramp, you're not throwing wood, because that's what happens. It'll spin, either spin on the wood because there's no grip tape, or if it's grip tape and there's nothing down here locking it down, it'll just yank this and pull the wood out, and you'll still drop your car and mess it up. So we just gotta see how this works. And it's been a while since we built anything on this channel, so we're gonna do some building on this. So the first thing I wanna check is to make sure this angle is correct, because we know the angle directly with the ramp is too steep for modified cars. So I just want to see if this angle is right. So I'll pull up the vehicle to it and see if we got a good angle. I made sure I got enough room to do my hole, to make sure I had the bolt that'll anchor it. And then we'll work on figuring out all the structural support later. But first we just want to make sure if the angle's right. If the angle's right, the structure can just fall in place. So as an artist with a Kentucky education, my geometrical calculations are not that great, but my eyes are. So look at this. Beautiful angle, clearing everything. You can see where it gets close towards the front, but I think we can live with that. Everything else is clearing all the way across to the top. Now, we may have to worry about this at the very top once we get there. Here's another angle to show you how you're clearing. So yes, over here towards the center, it'll essentially be hitting the wood, but out where my extended wheels are, it's clearing pretty good. I don't see it gonna rub at all. Plus, once it gets up on this lip, it's gonna lift it another 2 inches or 1.5 inches off the ground, so we'll be good. So yeah, the best might be the 12-footer cut in half, so you have 6-foot length, but this 5-foot works fine. So next, we're gonna look at our support structures and how we're gonna handle that. What I was reading is this wood strength, depending on the type of wood, is measured every 16 inches. So we'll just have a support every 16 inches to make sure we're good to go. Also, if you compare the 2x10, it almost fills this whole gap. Where if you did the 2x8, it would bring it back down to about here. So for me, measuring exactly where this mark is, because that's going to be in relationship to where we're going to drill the hole to put the bolt, is very important. So I went ahead and use this straight edge to do that. So we're right at 4 inches of overlap, and then we'll just measure where the Rhino circle part is here. Okay, I grabbed a piece of scrap 2x4, marked it right at 16, and that is where it hits at this angle exactly. So that's a good placement for the first support, and we'll measure for the second. Okay, using 2 scrap 2x4s stacked on each other, that puts us right at 33, within an inch of the 16. So I think we can be good with that, safe with that. Okay, to match the next 16 inches takes us to 48. And that one doesn't have a perfect match, so we'll have to think about, do we shim it? How do we come to a good solution of fixing that? Actually, if we shift to the next contact point, puts us at 51.5, which is within 3.5 inches of where it should be. That might be a better solution. Maybe we can take a piece of wood and cut it down here to fill this in a little bit better. Maybe that'll be a better solution and offer better support. So now if you look, you can see where our 4-inch was, and on our marks, you can see the wood residue on this 8th line across. We just need to put our hole right at about 2 inches. We want to come maybe about 2.25 because it's going to be an angle, but that's where we need to be. And we'll do that first, because based on where that sits, then all your cross members will be cut, because we only want to cut it once, but it needs to be already set up how it needs to be so we don't mess anything up. And checking our first test piece, that's basically where we're at. We're right at 2 inches. Okay, so I backed out the bolts from my test piece. Got a 15/64 bit. We'll go ahead and make new holes in the new wood. With everything marked, we'll go ahead and make our holes. First hole made, first bolt in. Got the wing nut on. Now we'll do the same on the other wood. Okay, so now we got our second wing nut on. Okay, a problem that I found is those 2-inch bolts are not going to be long enough. We got to get at least 2.5 or 3-inch ones. Okay, so I went and got some machine screws, stainless steel. These are M8 125 millimeter by 80, and new wing nuts. Okay, I'm going to go up to a 5/16 hole to fit those new bolts. So these have plenty of overhang. Now it locks in. Okay, I'm using some scrap. I'm gonna cut it at 3.5 this way. And this is scrap 2x10 that I had from the original test one. Okay, I got everything roughed out. On here, and both the other side. Okay, so the first hits right at 16. The second's gonna hit right at 16. The third's gonna hit right at 18, unless I do some kind of shim underneath it, which I think I'm gonna need to do for safety purposes. Same thing over here. That's a lot. If you don't have fancy tools to get the exact angle, go ahead and just use your iPhone, put it on measure tool. Get your top measurement, then go down to the bottom, get your bottom measurement. So we got -10 and -15. That's going to be a 10-degree difference. For safety reasons, don't try to cut small pieces like this any smaller. I went ahead and pulled out my other scrap. I'm gonna use that instead. I have the saw all set up at 10 degrees. I don't know if you can see down there, and we're ready to go. So I noticed since everything's thin, it just kind of snaps. So we'll probably have to glue this to the other piece of wood to make it work. Yeah, the other thing is to do another whole piece at the end of it and make like an L bracket of wood, if you know what I mean. I could take another piece of wood and go straight here down to here and mount these together. It's the other option I can do. That might be stronger. Okay, so now I got the center pieces screwed together. And then with these, I may end up making L brackets. So you can kind of just set them up underneath here. And kind of fit them within these grooves. That way when the pressure of the car sits on it, it sits down and presses tight. So this is some hardwood that I had, scrap hardwood from one of my son's projects. And then this is the 2x10 scrap that I used and just cut into, I believe these are 2-inch strips. Actually, no, those are 3. That's gotta be bigger. So that's how I did that so far. So that's all for this portion. Okay, so now it's the next day. Thought about whether or not to leave the wood loose or bolt it down. I was thinking about being able to take things apart, put it away, and then put it back together. But due to the weight and everything, I don't want this wood shifting. So we're gonna go ahead and screw it in using wood screws. That way we can secure these. So you just wanna kind of make sure these are placed exactly where they're making contact. Like that one has to move up a little bit. And then go ahead and mount your screws. That way everything is nice and secure and stable. One thing that I am doing, I'm not just putting screws in, I'm going ahead and prepping holes first. I think they're called guide holes or something like that. But that way you're not splitting wood. You're not putting extra pressure left and right. Your force is just going vertical, top to bottom. Okay, so got the first piece screwed in. What I do is I do the pilot hole first, then run my screw, then do the second pilot hole, run the screw, because if not, stuff moves around and it'll just be chaotic. And then I'm counting the number of lines here and making sure I'm on exact level. And then also making sure that I'm straight up here. So that's how I'm doing it. I know you guys probably know a better way, but this is what's working for me. Just doing it step by step, making sure everything's good. What you'll notice is the wood is bowed a little bit in the center, but the center makes contact right there. So after the top one's done, then work on the bottom. Don't do the center one yet, because things might shift and you want to do the center last after you got everything tightened down. Most important is top and bottom, then the center. Okay, now the bottom's already mounted. Okay, we finally mounted the center. We'll deal with the gaps. Main thing is the initial contact points where the weight's going. Okay, so now I got both of them set up. What you do to one side, just do to the other, follow the same steps. So if you have any cracks in your wood, just use some wood glue to help seal that up, reinforce it. Even though I made the pilot holes, the longer screws, it didn't help. Same thing on this one, just had a small one. And I'll run some more in there to make it even stronger, but just wanted to talk about that. Before we put the grip tape on, I just knocked off this edge. Make sure it wasn't so sharp. Did on both the top and bottom. That way it's less stress directly on the tire. Use power tools, whatever you got it available. Next, we're gonna remove these before we grip, and then we'll poke holes through the grip and then put them back in. Okay, so this is 10 by 36 inches grip tape that we'll use. See the description for where I got it from and what it is. If you don't know how to apply grip tape, I'll put the video in the description below so you can see how. So it's basically holding the tape from one end to the other, lining it up lengthwise, and then slowly bringing it down and then working your way from the center and then out. And there's certain ways you get out bubbles, but that's for skateboarders. So that's my initial drop. Got everything centered. Got enough overhang on each side. So now we're just gonna push it all down. Using the paper here. That way you can rub it down without shredding your hands. Okay, so we got our first piece down. Pressed in pretty good. I just haven't scored the edges. Okay, now we're ready for a second piece. We'll just kind of size it out, cut off the extra because there's about 12 inches extra, and we can just save that for another project. Got the second piece loosely applied. Then we'll just press out all the bubbles and then score the edges with the side of a screwdriver, just like we did on this one. Everything's scored out. Now we're ready to cut. After you scored it, you can just use a razor blade, box cutter to come up underneath and cut along the scores. The scores makes it easier to cut. If not, it's like cutting sandpaper. Okay, we're finished trimming it out. We just gotta use our ice pick and or dowel, and then put a hole right through here so we can put our hardware back on. So now I got it all. I said dowel, but you got me. Let's go ahead and put a hole through it. Let's see if everything fits. Okay, I'm going reverse side from the hardware because I don't want to push anything into the hole. We want to break it through this way. Just pressing down the edges. Now coming back through the top, I'm just basically setting it in now that it's pushed up. Get things started here. I'm trying to keep the grip tape out of the hole. There we go. Then we'll go ahead and put on our wing nut and then we'll be done. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and walk this down with your weight to kind of help press this grip tape in. If you have any big gaps, you can take some of the wood scraps that broke and kind of shim them in where needed. Because remember, the pressure is all going to be on one spot, but you just want to make sure that you have good contact points all throughout. And we'll see once I test it. Now we'll let both of those sit for a few hours to make sure the grip tape is firmly gripped and all the glue is dry. Okay, now we're going to do the moment of truth. See if these ramps work. Now you see it works, good clearance, and the way these are, you can pull them out, that way you can get underneath and then get back in there, put it back underneath to pull it back off the ramp. But just want to show you how to improve these and do a better job on your ramps. So I did notice there's a little bit of warp on the end of the board. I knew it before, but that's what's causing some noise, and it rocks back and forth as it's coming up and down. But I'll look at fixing that. But just wanted to kind of show you how it worked. One other place I might work on is this distance from here to here is exactly 16 inches. And that's the max for this wood. So I'm gonna have to reinforce in this area to give it some better support and or build another block set here. But yeah, I just want to kind of show you trials and errors, learn from experience, and just kind of see how other people think through a problem. That's all.